Kimberly and I just finished a celebrity reflection cruise, and the big question is, are we going to stick with Royal Caribbean from here on out, or will Celebrity make it into our mix of cruises? Spoiler alert, Celebrity is definitely going to be as often as possible for us. If this is your first time here, hi, I'm James with Sea Days and Sunsets, and with my wife Kimberly, we put together this channel for all things cruising, all things travel, and a whole lot of gambling along the way. And so, what's important to us is we generally focus on Royal Caribbean cruises as we're trying to make it to the pinnacle level here in 2026 in our first year of retirement. But in doing so, the Royal Caribbean Group has opened up the Points Choice program. Hopefully, you watched our video on that when it first came out back at the end of January. But it is allowing you to select when you go on a Royal Caribbean, a Celebrity, or a Silver Seas cruise, you can choose where you want your points to go. So for us chasing Pinnacle right now, we were able to go on a celebrity cruise, which we haven't done in quite some time. But now we're able to get those points moved back over into Royal Caribbean for our Pinnacle push, as we're calling it this year. So that was a huge decisive factor for us and then a huge reason why we can continue doing this in 2026, but then why we're going to keep going in 2027 and beyond is what we'd also like to talk about today. So the big things are the differences here. Why would you pick Celebrity over Royal Caribbean? We won't go into the other cruise lines out there. There's lots of good reasons for each of them. But why specifically are Kimberly and I choosing to try to do a lot more Celebrity here? Well, one is a little bit of a change. We have done so many Royal Caribbean cruises that we are, we're used to it. It's very familiar. The trivia questions are repeats in a lot of cases. And to make my point, I should have said this in the beginning, I am coming to you from the radiance of the seas today. So we're back on another cruise on Royal Caribbean. So we're not taking Royal out of the mix by any means. We love Royal, but a little bit of change along the way is going to go a long way for us here. And what I mean by some of the changes is food is a huge one for us. We've gotten to the point on Royal Caribbean where we don't generally go to the dining room any longer. We either do specialty dining or we go to the buffet. I know those are two huge extremes, but that's kind of where we've landed right now is that the menu has become so repetitive and predictable that we just doesn't excite us anymore. The third option for where we go to dinner also is the Crown Lounge. Sometimes we eat our entire dinner up in the Crown Lounge from the appetizer buffet that they have up there each night. But on celebrity cruises, we went to the dining room every single night and we honestly enjoyed it. It was different. Not every meal is going to be perfect for every person, but in the sense that it was very well prepared. We had excellent servers in there. Royal Caribbean servers are excellent too, but we had just a great experience the whole time. We did try the buffet also one evening, and even their buffet is a winner up there. We did eat for lunches and breakfast. We would go up to the buffet generally and enjoy ourselves in there. So the food had made a huge difference. As I alluded to earlier, the entertainment, the trivias, the shows, things like that are different for us. Now, Royal Caribbean definitely has a lot of shows that are production level, high quality. People like the comedians, the jugglers, those sort of people. That's pretty much the same, and I believe they even share a lot of the same people across the Royal Caribbean group so that people rotate between the different brands as they go. But we really enjoyed the activity staff and the fact that there were a lot of things going on that we had never seen before. Each night at our loyalty level at Elite Plus, because we're Diamond Plus on Royal, so we were able to go across to the sister brand as Elite Plus over there. They have a cocktail hour for 2 hours where you can go to just about any bar on the ship and get your drinks for free during that time. We do really love the coupon system that the Diamond Plus and above gets on Royal Caribbean, where throughout the day for us right now, we get 5 drinks at any time we want all the way up through $14, I believe it is, but I think they're really giving it to you around $15 right now. So all your mixed cocktails and things like that are included, but we get to do that all day long. So we do quite enjoy that. But the 2 hours on Celebrity was a very, very nice thing that we were able to go and get those drinks, especially have a pre-dinner drink along the way, go up to some of the lounges and just relax and enjoy ourselves before we went to dinner. And then depending on when we wrapped up dinner, we were able to go back and maybe get another drink along the way. So that was a very big deal to us. The cabins are, depending on the ship quality, which of course this was the Reflection, a great ship. So the cabins were great for us. Everything worked out quite well. We ended up in an inside cabin, but I think it was kind of one of those strange corner cabins that ended up feeling extra large. I guess I don't officially know the square footage of it or anything like that, but it felt like we had an excess amount of room in there, and especially for a 4-day cruise without a ton of luggage, it was very easy to stretch our legs and feel comfortable, throughout, that experience. The shower was good. Our cabin steward was amazing. One of our favorite tricks that I love to recommend if you're gonna get an inside cabin and you get to pick your cabin is to always pick one close to the suites, because your cabin steward is then servicing the suite. And if you have to ask for a better hair dryer for Kimberly, not for me, of course, but they generally have the better equipment and the accessibility to all of that equipment as necessary there. So we find that we get really great experiences that way and tend to lean that way. And but that is for Royal Caribbean, and we did the same thing on Celebrity. So there really wasn't a huge difference there. Pool experience, all of that is, along the lines of what you expect from Royal Caribbean. They had some great, adult areas on there also, and we took advantage of that and really enjoyed it. The crowd on Celebrity was definitely more adult leaning. While there were some kids on the ship, there were not nearly as many as Royal Caribbean, which is a much more family-oriented cruise. And I don't wanna make it sound like we have anything against kids, but when it is just Kimberly and myself traveling without our son Logan, we do like, a mature group who's maybe not running around as crazy at all hours of the night, and just kind of we like the conversation and meeting new people that share our same interests. So again, if you ever see us on a cruise, please come up and say hi. We love to meet people. Our Liberty of the Seas transatlantic was one where people were following the channel at that point and coming up on that ship and letting us know, and I got to meet some really great people on that. So please, if you recognize me, and hopefully eventually I get Kimberly to be on some of our videos, but if you recognize either one of us, please come up and say hi. We love to talk to people, but that was a huge advantage on Celebrity. We were traveling with a couple that we had met on a previous Royal Caribbean cruise who have become good friends, and so we had some of that as an extra experience, for some people to share that with. Now, of course, one of the biggest things that we always talk about on our channel is the gambling, is the casino. And for anyone who doesn't know, celebrity casinos are 100% non-smoking, and that was a very big deal for us. It really made a difference for our experience as we moved around through the casino, as we enjoyed the gambling aspect of it. The machines were in very good condition. Now, I didn't hear as many people banging on the machines and slapping the buttons and things like that as we were talking about. It seemed like a little bit more of a relaxed crowd, and I think Royal has a more dedicated group of gamblers than Celebrity. Celebrity seemed more like the old school type that I remember of people who were just novice gamblers who just went in to throw a couple dollars in the machine. I know there's a lot of you out there that are serious and that go on Celebrity, but on our ship, it just seemed like a much more novice group, maybe not even understanding the rules of blackjack and how to do, the best play, things like that. I was observing that quite a bit. But in doing so, some of the big things, they did have some higher limits on the blackjack tables. And they, even with those higher limits, the machines, or I'm sorry, the tables were paying 6 to 5 still on there. So they have given you some less than optimal chances for getting your best odds on blackjack at some of those higher limits and everything. I believe it was at least 25, maybe it was higher. It might have been $50 before I could see a 3-2 table out there. I know I saw a lot of people playing 6 to 5, but they did have single deck on there. Um, and then the slot machines, we did really like the quality and the variety of slots that were available. The Reflections Casino was large. And while it did fill up, of course, because there were people who enjoyed that in the evenings, we were able to move around and get our opportunities on different machines. The biggest challenge was one of my favorites, which is the video poker machines. I think there were 6 video poker machines on there, and it definitely became hard at some points to get a machine that you wanted. But if you just kind of hung out and enjoyed the vibe of the casino, you were able to get in and sit down. Now, before I go into video poker, I will point out one other thing for the casino. Whereas on Royal Caribbean, you do have to get up to the prime level of 2,500 points before you start getting your free drinks in the casino. But in doing so, you can usually just walk up to the bar and get a drink anytime you want, even if you're not sitting down to play at that particular time. While that is officially the rule in Royal, you are supposed to be playing. They don't enforce that rule generally, and you are able to just go up to the bar, whether you are playing and just walk up maybe from a craps table or a blackjack table, you go to the bar and get your drink. Where on Celebrity, if you are sitting, you can get free drinks while you're playing. The only downside to that is they are rail drinks while you're doing that. So they're not the highest quality, where Royal lets you get pretty much those same drinks I was describing for the Diamond Plus certificates. On Royal, you can get those through the Prime level at their casino bar whenever you want while the casino is open and plays available. So back to the video poker. The one thing I want to call out on that, this was the biggest surprise. So if you saw my previous video while I was on Liberty of the Seas, when they upped the requirement on Royal Caribbean to $15 per point, they, of course, leveled the playing field because they had upped the pay tables on most of their ships so that you had better odds of winning or a higher return to player RTP during that. Celebrity has gotten their video poker machines upgraded to the higher pay tables, but they are still at the $10 level. So this was enormous for us. So I didn't even realize it on the first night, really how big of a difference it made. But after just my first night of playing, I was over 1,300 points. And for anybody who pays attention, we're low rollers. A lot of times we only get 1,200 points on a cruise because we're always targeting what we wanted to go for. We had a 1,200 point goal for another reflection cruise. And then we had a stretch goal of 2,000 points to hop on a Beyond cruise for later in the year. Well, after you just heard I got 1,300 points on the first night, that stretch goal was really easy to make. And I'm actually kicking myself that I stopped when I got to that 2,000 points because I broke even. I think I officially won 35 cents based on the free play that Kimberly took off with and had some fun playing with. And we were up 35 cents at the end of it and broke even with 2,000 points with these pay tables that we were able to take advantage of. Now, of course, for anyone who doesn't know, Celebrity will reset their yearly program on August 1st. So as I was saying, I am kind of kicking myself a little bit that I didn't go for at least 3,000 points in case we are able to get another cruise in before August 1st, and then it would have made it really easy to get to the 5,000 points that are required for the Amethyst level on Celebrity. So if you didn't catch that, Prime level to get that free cruise each year is 2,500 points, whereas Amethyst on Celebrity is 5,000 points. So we're not planning on making it this year, and we're going to cross our fingers that they don't change the program. And hopefully all the free cruises will still be there, and we're going to jump in and try to get those 5,000 points for next year. with this program because it's a strong program. It's extremely similar to Royal Caribbean. I plan on doing a breakdown similar to the video I hope you've watched, which is the deep dive of the Casino Royale program. I want to do a deep dive of the Blue Chip Club also. Please let me know in the comments if that is something that you would enjoy. Uh, but that is my plan. And if there's anything you have any questions about, post those out there, and I'll try to make sure I know the answers by the time I do that video. But with this, we want to get back on before they catch up with the video poker rules. I'm kind of expecting they're going to change the point requirement similar to the way Royal Caribbean did. Because just as an example here, I did the breakdown. Please go back and watch that video about video poker on there. But previously, you were pretty much at around a 96% return to player on there. And with the new pay tables, I'm just rounding here, you're going to go to about 98%. And while that 2% doesn't sound like much, it is literally half the expected loss when you go through that. So this was a really big deal to us. I'll go ahead and mention with slots, it is 1 point per $5, exactly the same as Royal Caribbean there. And table games are rated with that same mystery logic that the pit bosses use to really figure out how you're going to be rated, but it's generally based on your average bet per certain number. We'll just call it per hour there and everything. And it kind of comes out to you get your number of points based on the house's edge that goes with that. So I just wanted to cover that really quickly. But for Kimberly and myself, we were big celebrity cruisers before we switched to Royal Caribbean and really dove in head first. And this has been 20 years ago that we were heavy celebrity cruisers. And then we switched back to Royal Caribbean. And we've always hit other cruise lines along the way until we reached that 340 point on Royal Caribbean and noticed that we could start making that push towards Pinnacle, and especially being retired this year and the casino program, we had the availability to push towards that. The final thing I want to bring up as to why it's important to Kimberly and myself that we continue to do celebrity while we're pushing towards Pinnacle on Royal Caribbean is that once we reach Pinnacle on Royal, we will also get to have the reciprocity of having Zenith on the celebrity cruise lines. And with that, we were talking about the coupons that you get in the for the drinks on Royal. Now instead, Celebrity is going to give us an entire drink package at the premium level whenever you're Zenith. And you pretty much get all the same Zenith perks except for the ability to get into their suite areas while you're on the ship. But all the other perks, including restaurant, free internet, and all the other things that we can go over at some point, will be available to us there. And that is going to almost be bigger than some of the Royal Caribbean perks for us as far as what will be available at all times for us while we're cruising. So hopefully this has been some great information for you to understand the advantages and why Kimberly and I are choosing to go with Celebrity Cruise Lines a lot more over the next couple years, even as we're pushing towards Pinnacle on Royal. Please, if this has been helpful, we'd appreciate a like. And if you haven't already, a subscribe with notifications so you get an update whenever we put out any of these videos. In the meantime, I hope you have the best of luck in the casino, and I hope your travels are wonderful. Bye.